today, we are going to present how performance management influences organizational performance. So first, what is organizational performance? Influence performance involves analyzing a company's performance against its objectives and goals. In other words, organization performance comprises real results or outputs compared with intended outputs. An organization is an organized group of individuals with specific purpose, while performance is a process or action of performing a task or function. So what is organizational performance? According to Louis James, organization performance relates to how successful an organized group of people with a particular purpose perform a function. Next is how to measure organizational performance. First is by measuring the achievement. This will evaluate how successful an organization meets its target, expenditure, bottom line profit, and innovation. Second is looking at the results of business investments and projects. How effectively and efficiently an organization can execute business projects. Organization alignment can refer to the synchronization between different departments, individual employees, and their team. The more aligned the workers and business units are with the organization, the better the organization will perform. How well a business performs in the marketplace can demonstrate its organizational performance. Lastly is the workforce metrics. The workplace and the workforce experience play a major role in how well organizations perform. Next is what is performance management. Performance management is a process of continuous feedbacks and communication between managers and their employees to ensure the achievement of the strategic objective of the organization. It is also the process of establishing work environment that allows individuals to perform to their full potential in order to achieve a company goals. Next is the process of performance management. First is performance planning. It is essential to determine an individual or organization goals and prepare the best approach to achieve them. Second is ongoing feedback. It will help to improve employee productivity, build strong relationship, increase employee retention, and encourage new ideas. Third is employee input. It is where the employer asks the employee to summarize their achievement throughout the year. Fourth is performance appraisal. It is a useful method of evaluating an employee performance and result in relation to their job obligation. Lastly is performance review. It will identify trends and weaknesses of employees, offers feedbacks, and set the goals for future performance. That is all from me. I will pass it to the next presenter to explain more about organizational performance.
Thank you to Nashlani and hi, Assalamualaikum. So my name is Nur Izzati Binti Rosmi. As you guys can see, most essential factors affecting organization performance are leadership, motivation, organization culture, and knowledge management. So I will start explaining about the leadership. It's the process that allows person to influence others to attain a goals and leads the organization to become a reasonable and consistent. Employees and organization where there is confidence and belief in the leaders will regard leadership as helpful, attentive, and devoted to their welfare, while still knowing that difficult decisions must be made. Besides, an effective communication by the leadership in making employees understand the business strategy and help them to contribute to achieve the organization. And the next, I will explain about the motivation. We refer to the mechanism that explain an individual intensity, direction, and tenacity and pursuing a goals. According to the Abraham Maslow theory, needs are structured into a hierarchy that begins with the lowest degree of need and progresses up to the hierarchy. Will a worker be motivated by the possibility of having the next need up in the hierarchy satisfied? And the third one is organizational culture is a totality of belief, custom, traditions, and values that shared by the members of the organization. The culture of the group can be defined as the pattern of shared basic assumption that the group learned as it solved its problem of the external adaptation and internal integration that has worked well enough to be considered valid. The last factors on the organizational performance is a knowledge management. It's a concept that which a company acquires, organize, and share and analyze its knowledge in terms of resources, record, and human abilities. So how performance management influence organization performance? So the first is increase employee engagement since everyone know and understand how they are directly contributing to the organization success. Second, employee action and the behavior get aligned to organizational objective and goals. And the third one is better managerial control that is more adaptable and sensitive to organizational demands. And the last is performance management decrease the time it takes to create strategic or operational change by communicating the change through a new set of goals. Goals are established and work is frequently planned, given feedback on their progress toward those targets. High expectations are established, but attention is also given to develop the abilities required to meet them. Formal and informal awards are used to acknowledge the behavior and outcomes that contribute to the mission success, and all of the component processes work together to provide natural, effective performance management. So the next topic is developing an effective performance management system. So, to ensure that individual and team goals are linked with organization goals, in order to improve performance at individual, teams, and organizational levels through effective application of human resource method, there is a few steps that you should know how to develop an effective performance. First step is to create a performance management plan. Two stage of your performance management plan. So the second step is set the goals of performance management. So the third one, to build a performance review system. What is it? If done well, this system will have your employees bring their work to you for evaluation. Step 4 is to develop a feedback giving skills. Feedback, and most of them feel discouraged when it's become extremely negative. So the last step of developing an effective performance management system is ongoing employee performance management, and keep the performance management in cycle rolling. So the next topic is about the performance standard that to ensure both of employee and employers are on the same page regarding to the job expectation. So let me show you some video about performance standard.
Okay, hi. Do your performance comply with the law? Okay, first, performance review must meet certain legal requirements, just like selection procedure must. Carefully defined and measurable performance standard are requirements. For the first legal list, performance requirement must be established by a job analysis, and the evaluation must be job related. So second is prior to the start of each employee shift clear and the cognitive job, standard must review to learn what they must to do to obtain the highest score. And last, the manager conducting the review must be able to do the action of being met. Next, sources of performance review information have stated in slide is 3. Okay, for the first is manager or supervisor. The performance review done by a manager is a part of the traditional and basic form of analysis. This review must include individual employee rating awarded by supervisor or manager, as well as the evaluation of the team or program done by a senior manager. For the second is the employee. Okay, for the employee will help to determine other employee to ability to work well with the team, take up of initiative, and be a reliable contributor. However, friendship or interlink between employee may end up distorting the final evaluation result. Sources review information is subordinates. Subordinate has been used by both large and small organizations to give manager feedback on how their subordinates view them. subordinates are in a good position to provide feedback to their manager because they are in frequent contact with their superior and occupy a unique position from which to observe many performance-related behavior such as their leadership ability, the ability to delegate, employee support, and so on. So the information gathered is often used for developmental rather of their subordinate. Their own performance can improve their subordination. For next slide is a pros and cons of 360 degree. Okay, for the positively of 360 degree is first, provide feedback to employees. Okay, what is a provide feedback to employees is not an employees a good quality. Let employee know what they are particularly good at and what traits that you appreciate. Trying good quality to organizational value creates a line of sight to business result and builds employee confidence. Okay, next for the pros is develop strength and teamwork, which is in theory, if everyone identify their strength, weakness, and behavior that they need to work on, they end up becoming better co-worker and the team will be happier and more productive. For the negatively of 360 degree, first focuses on employee weaknesses and shortcoming instead of strength. It will make employee demotivated to coming work because the manager has will always mention their weaknesses instead their strength. For last of cons of 360 degree is require large degree of data collection and processing. In some cases, it will take a lot of time to process of the data collection and processing cases that a big issue in that.
And now I will continue the presentations about performance review method. There are three main methods of determining performance. There are trait, behavioral, and results method. Trait method approach is where the managers look at the employee's specific traits in relation to the job, as in the employee's characteristic, while the behavioral method looks at individual action within a specific job, which are more action-oriented information. And lastly, results method, which focus on employees' accomplishment, such as whether or not the employee met a quota and contributed to the organization. So as you can see, we have four methods under the trait approach. Rapid rating scale method is the most popular choice for performance evaluation, where the employees are being rated according to a scale of characteristics. Next, we have mixed standard scale method, which are quite similar to other scale method. It is based on a comparison with a standard. The third one is forced choice method. It is in the form of a survey questionnaire. It requires the rater to choose from statement design to distinguish between successful and unsuccessful performance. We moved on onto the next slide, which is behavioral method. The first one is critical incident method, where the manager records example of the employee's effective and ineffective behavior during the time period between the evaluation to see how well they perform. The next one is behavioral checklist method. It's a rating form containing statements describing the characteristics of the employee's behavior. Then we have behavior observation skill. It measures behavior that you want the employee to achieve on a skill. And lastly, behaviorally anchored rating skill, or BARS. The skill in BARS represent a continuum of descriptive statements of behavior ranging from least to most effective. And lastly, we have results method. The first method for this approach is sales, productivity, and quality measures. It directly links what employees accomplish to results that benefit the organization. The second method is management by objective. It involves in setting specific measurable goals with each employee and then periodically discussing his or her progress toward these goals. Lastly, we have the balanced scorecard method. It is the evaluation that allows each individual to see how his or her performance ties into the overall performance of the firm, and it takes into account four types of measure, which is financial, customer, process, and learning. Now let us see the advantages and disadvantages for the first method. The trade method is inexpensive to develop and it is easily understood by employees and managers. However, this trade rating is personal opinion can always influence the rating and hence affect the ratings. A person with personal favor can get more advantage than others. Next is behavioral method. The advantages of this method is it is able to define behavior clearly and to measure changes in behavior. According to the law of parsimony, the fewer assumptions a theory makes, the better and the more credible it is. Nevertheless, this method still has its own disadvantages, which is it only focuses on the surface of people's issues such as their behavior. It fails to look at underlying causes such as what occurs in the human mind. And lastly, the results method. The main advantage of this method is that it converts strategy into operation with a more holistic view. However, it isn't practical for service-oriented or appointment-oriented workplaces such as restaurant or a doctor's office.
Now, I would like to continue our presentation and talk about performance review meetings and feedback section. Performance review meetings is a formal assessment in which a manager evaluates an employee's work performance, identifies strengths and weakness, offers feedback, and set goals for future performance. Performance review, also called performance appraisals or performance evaluations. Performance evaluation should be scheduled far enough in advance to allow the subordinates. Usually, 10 days to 2 weeks is a sufficient amount of lead time to manager prepare for the discussion. There are 3 types of performance review meetings and feedback. Number 1, tell and sell. In this type, manager is aiming to communicate to the employees their evaluation as accurately as possible. Manager seeks to let the subordinate know how they're doing, gain their acceptance of the evaluation, and then get them to follow the manager's plan for improvement. It requires manager to have a skill of using motivational and persuasive technique to try, change, an employee's behavior. Number 2, tell and listen. The purpose is to communicate the evaluation to the subordinate and then let him or her respond to it. The supervisor or appraiser describe the strength and weakness of an employee's performance during the first part of the interview. During the second part of the section, the employee's feelings about the review are thoroughly explored. Lastly, problem solving. In this type, manager seeks to obtain the employee's buy-in for a mutual agreed upon way to overcome obstacle and actually it improves the person's actual performance. Problem solving is more to skill of defining a problem to determine its cause, identify it, prioritize and select alternative solutions. And also, problem solving have 3 phases which are exceed expectation, meet expectation, and need improvement. Next, I will talk about conducting the performance review meetings. The goal is to make the meeting productive and produce outcomes that benefits both employee and the company. There are no hard and fast rules for how to conduct a review, but as a manager, we need to follow the guideline given to increase the willingness of employees to accept feedback and discuss their performance. Feedback process is where employee can increase their satisfaction. For example, number 1, employees should ask for a self-evaluation. Number 2, invite participation. Number 3, express appreciation. Number 4, be supportive and demonstrate that you care. Number 5, minimize criticism. Number 6, establish goals. And the last one, employees should follow up day by day. Lastly, I will talk about improving performance, which a manager should create a positive experience that motivates employees. Number 1, identifying the sources of ineffective performance. A person's performance is a function of several factors, but perhaps it can be boiled down to 3 primary concerns, which are ability, motivation, and environment. Number 2, performance diagnosis. By comparing different performance measures, manager can begin to get an idea of the underlying causes of performance problem. Number 3, managing ineffective performance. Once the sources of performance problem are known, a course of action can be planned, such as providing training or transferring the employee. And the last one is focus on changing the behavior, not the person. A manager must separate the employee from the behavior.
Move on to an impact of poor performance management. As we know, there are a lot of impact. I'm only gonna explain just 4 of example the impact of poor management. First of all, lack of employee engagement. When a performance plan is unclear, employees are unsure how their everyday work contributes to the agency mission. There are no set of goal or progress essential ingredients to develop a engaged and high-performing employee. Second is a damaged relationship. This is between manager and employee relationship, are also at risk under weak performance management system. Employees subject to the ineffective system and performance review practice are likely to feel upset, demoralized, and demotivated. This can lead to the personal relationship that are damaged, sometimes permanently. Next, employees become dismotivated. This will happen when employees feel unappreciated or unrecognized. Their motivation will drop, which is ultimately leads to the lower engagement and lower performance rate. Alright, last but not least, employee could quit based on unfair result. If an employee perform well and they feel that they were assessed unfairly, there are little motivation left to them to stay with the company. Even if an employee doesn't leave the company, they may become withdrawn by the company themselves. Conclusion: performance management is not only an evaluation process of a person's performance with reward as an outcome. It intends to align and improve the performance of an individual to get the overall organization goal. A good performance management should provide a way to create an effective individual development plan.